made by a friend of mine. His name is Steve Lefevre. You'll see his name on the screen. And no, I did it again. I hit that button. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's the lower right one. Sorry. Thank you. So Steve has a company called Profit Mastery, and they have an online seminar that people in the United States take a lot. Thank you very much. You're getting good at that. I borrowed from him this little video where he's actually talking to a class about ratios. So it's a video. Here it comes.
Relationship. That's what you were all thinking. And what do we call relationships in finance? Ratios. In other words, this is going to give us the ability to measure. And the real beauty is we can compare one number to another, can't we? Because 100 over 100 is the same as 10 over 10 is the same as 1 over 1. A ratio creates a relative measure so we can compare different sizes against one another. And that's what we want to do.
Oh, he's gone. That was the end. So that's how you spell his name. So there are ratios for every industry. Got a shoe store, there are ratios about shoes. And you know, if you've got a trucking company, if you've got a lumber company, there are always ratios, and they're very special for each industry. Some of them are for all industries. I'm just going to talk for just a minute about one of them. It's called the current ratio. It's very commonly used in the United States, especially by banks. And because banks like to use it, it's a really good idea for business owners to know about it. So the current ratio compares two things: what you own and what you owe. So what is yours and what is not yours. If a company has a bad or weak current ratio, it is a company that is risky. And what do you own? Just to clarify for a minute. When I say what you own, well, you own the cash that's in the bank. You own the payments that you're going to get real soon from your customers. And a few other things, but that's the majority of what you own. That's what you own currently. You also have furniture and fixtures and trucks, but they sometimes don't figure in the current ratio. Then you have things that you owe, things that you have to pay, like loan payments. The balance that you owe, you borrowed, $100,000, and you still owe $85,000. And you also have the bills that you haven't paid yet, you owe that. So the current ratio compares what you own compared to what you don't own. So if you have a ratio in the United States, if you have a ratio of 2 to 1, if your current ratio is 2 to 1, it means that you're a nice, solid company. You own $2 for every $1 that you have to give someone else. And in 1972, in the summer of 1972, Starbucks had a terrible current ratio. I mean, really scary. This is a story you will not read in a book. I know it, but my partners know it. So we had a terrible current ratio. Why? Why did we have a terrible current ratio? What had happened? Well, we opened a second store at the beginning of that year, and then our roasting plant was finished, and we opened that. And guess what? In our forecast that we had made, we hadn't really considered how fast that was going to happen. So we ran out of money. We were broke. And the phone was ringing. That's what happens when you run out of money. The phone starts ringing. Who's calling? The people you owe the money. banks calling, the people that sell you merchandise, they're calling. It's not a fun situation, folks. So it got so bad because we were so foolish to go ahead and open a second store in a roasting plant without having enough money. We actually had changed our plan and opened faster. That our bank called us and said, would you please go find another bank? We don't want to do business with you anymore. It was terrible. This is Starbucks Coffee Company. So we started to look for another bank, but we knew from talking with the banker that it was our debt, our current ratio, the fact that we didn't have enough money in the bank compared to what we owed, that was very disturbing. So we did something really smart. We went to a friend of ours who had just made some money and said, would you like to buy some stock in our company? And he did. I can remember the number. It was $30,000. That would be about $150,000 today. It's a small company then. And we took his money, and guess what we did with it? We went and paid our bills. So suddenly, our current ratio got back into balance. It was probably 1.5 to 1, and, instead of being a negative number. And we went to the new bank and said, hey, here's our company, here's our current ratio, thanks to our new investor. And they said, yeah, we'll loan you money. So I hope the story, helps you understand that ratios are very real. They're not just for classrooms, and it's important to keep track of them. So what we've learned is you shouldn't be aware of ratios. You should use them to communicate with people because it makes the conversation go better. And you should know the ratios for your type of business. So we're done now with the middle part, and we're getting into the hot part. I have saved these for the end. So we're going to first talk about the right team. And for those of you who are interested in human resources, sorry, but we're not going to talk about that. So this is our 9th hurdle. It's about people. And you notice I haven't used the word employees because, as it turns out, the team that I'm talking about, it really isn't about the employees. Yes, you have to have employees. Well, for many of you, you will have to have employees, and you have to, do a good job of hiring them and training them and giving them some responsibility and then rewarding them and then hopefully keeping them for a while. But I don't want to talk about that. That's a separate subject for another speaker. So an important question that we have to ask ourselves is, can a business owner, like some of you are and others of you will be, can you know everything about what your business needs to know, everything that's required? You would be a rare person if you knew everything that your business is going to require. The truth is, even though starting a business is a very egocentric thing, the truth is you need other people, not just your employees. So here we have the Starbucks founders. We're much more mature now. I want you to notice my tie. It's as big as a house. Notice the one today. It's very skinny. So here we are. It's about 1978, 79. And we had a pretty good partnership going. We trusted each other. We each had different responsibilities in the company. It was a wonderful partnership. And, but we still didn't know everything, even among the three of us. Now, I'm not showing you this picture because you have to have partners. You don't have to have partners. I'm showing you this picture because I want you to understand that it's very hard for one person to make a success of a company. So can you know everything as a business owner? One person? I don't think so. I haven't seen very many of those. So you have to know your own limitations. This is very hard for human beings. You know, we have weaknesses. We're not perfect. I'm sorry, you're just not. And the idea is to get help from other people, sometimes from your employees, but from other people who can help you make up for your weaknesses so that the company doesn't have to suffer from what you don't know, that the company can succeed. So let's talk about some of those people. Well, we already talked about the two very real guys, David and Tony. Tony's the older guy and David's the younger guy. I would say that Tony is a very big asset to David, and he's one of the things that's going to make the company succeed. He's not an employee. Tony's not an employee. Tony is, you know, as part of this time, he's being a mentor to David. He's showing him how it's done. And mentors can help you train, like a business athlete, can help you train to get over the hurdles. And I want to show you a picture of the man who helped me over the hurdles, and my partners, Jerry Baldwin and Gordon Bowker. There he is. His name is Alfred Peet, and yes, he is the same Pete as in the Peet's Coffee Company that you saw. It's a Dutch name, and Alfred Peet was a pioneer in the American gourmet coffee revolution that began in the late 1960s and frankly has never ended. It's still going on. He opened a store called Peet's Coffee Company near San Francisco. For those of you who know Northern California, it's in Berkeley, California, where the University of California is located. It's called Cal Berkeley. And his store was a runaway success, unbelievable. It was very busy store. And then he opened a couple more. Peet's today, as I said before, has 220 stores, but under the present ownership, it also sells in thousands of supermarkets all over the United States, thousands of them. Now, Mr. Peet, who you see here, sold his company after running it for 20 years. In the 1980s, he sold it. But it still has his name, and I suggest that you visit their website sometime, peetscoffee.com. It's a good website, by the way. So in 1970, remember I was doing research we had decided we were going to research the coffee business, and I went off on my car trip to California, and I mentioned that I met one company that was pretty good. It was his company. And when I went to the store and realized how absolutely fabulous it was, I arranged to meet him. I got a little bit assertive and aggressive and arranged to meet him, and he actually invited me to dinner. And eventually, he agreed to become a mentor to myself and to my partners. Now, one factor in this, and I don't want to leave it out because I don't want you to have any illusions. Alfred Peet never married. He never had children. And I think we were his children. So in 1970 and 1971 and 1972, we were his honorary nephews, I call us. And his philosophy became our philosophy. His philosophy was no compromise on quality, none. It had to be right or you don't sell it. That was basically his approach. We added some things to that. Now, Alfred Peet was not a very gentle uncle. He was a very demanding guy. He was an old school European guy from Holland. But we respected him very, very much. He had very strong ideas about how we should do things, and fairly often we listened to his advice, I would say 80% of the time. Now, Mr. Peet died a few years ago at a very old age. He had a wonderful life. I just want you to understand that you would not be going to Starbucks in Kuwait City if this man hadn't helped us. So I wanted to ask the people in the back to think, who is going to be your Alfred Pete? Another person on the team, this is a suggestion, it can be actually more than, it's a group of people. It can be a committee of advisors. This is something that I've done in my life. Some of my clients have done it. I'm a business advisor. And here's how it works. You decide you're going to have a committee of advisors, and you recruit them. And every one of them are people who are experts in some field. They might be a lawyer and an accountant, a successful marketing executive, maybe it's somebody who's in the same business as you are, but they're actually living in another city, so they're not a competitor. And the important thing about them is that they have been where you are going. They understand what's going to happen. So you get them to volunteer in the United States, they will do that. And I've always found that a great way to get people to come to meetings is to promise them lunch. They show up. And you have these meetings in which you have very frank, open, and honest discussions about your company. And this committee of advisors, they're not your investors. They're probably not people who are your regular customers, but they're experts in your type of business. Boy, can that make a difference. And I encourage you to at least think about the idea. So what have we learned about the members of your team? The team actually should be larger than just you. Yes, you do need to hire, train, and review, and empower, and retain good employees, and we're not going to talk about that tonight, even though it's very important. I think you should try to find a mentor. And I would like you to consider the idea of assembling a group of advisors. By the way, one of the things that the group of advisors likes is they just like getting together and helping you. It's like a club. And it's surprising sometimes to see the interpersonal part of it. The end is near. You know, if this were a real hurdles race, there would be, this is the 10th hurdle. There are only 10 hurdles in that race. And then, you know, you're leaping over the hurdle and you can see the finish line. It's just a few steps ahead of you. Of course, and when you're a small businessman, you think you see the finish line, and that's never the finish line. There's always more hurdles. So if you're a human being and you're breathing, you think you're a marketer. Everybody thinks they're a marketer because we're all shoppers, right? And we think because we all buy things that we understand marketing. But what is marketing? Well, I have my own definition. I was just today at the Kuwait University, and I'm sure that the people there have other definitions, but here's mine. I think marketing is absolutely everything about how a customer experiences your company. Everything. And what would that include? Well, maybe it's your website, your business card, the products you sell, the market research that you do, the type of employees that you have and how you train them. That's part of marketing, I think. How you answer the telephone. Everybody's heard somebody answer the telephone in a very gruff, hostile way. Boy, it's terrible. It is also how many mistakes you make in your email correspondence. Nobody here would ever send out an email that had a mistake in it, would they? Well, of course, we all do, but you know, I would suggest you use the whatever spell check device you have, because when the person receives that email with those typos in it, they think you're an idiot and a bad business person, and maybe you won't do what you say you're going to do for them. It also is, you know, how do your trucks look? Are they clean or are they dirty and full of dents because they've had accidents? Your advertising, do you do customer surveys? How's your pricing? It's everything. It's everything about how a customer experiences your company. Now, I have made a little chart. I think you have this. This is a simple marketing budget. It's a tool to help you think and organize your marketing. And like a lot of things that work in business, in small business, this isn't very complicated. So, on the left side, there's a list of some of the things you might do. In this one, there's exterior signage, there's stuff about your website. And by the way, this is just the first page of several pages, but the stage is in the way, so you can't see the other pages. So, then in the next column, it says owner. Well, this is the person who owns this task. And as you can see, most of the things in the owner column, they're not you. They're other companies. They're a sign company, or it could be almost anything. And those are the people that have to get that done. You manage them, but they do it. And if you think, you entrepreneurs out there, if you think that you can do all these things yourself, well, you're wrong. You need other people to help you with this stuff. Then on the far column, there is a budget which says estimated costs, and then there's room at the blank side there for the actual cost. Because the actual cost, it's always different from the estimated cost. Sometimes lower. So if you think about for a minute, what if you were starting a business and you started doing this? Well, boy, would you organize your thinking? Your thinking gets really organized when you have to put it on paper. Then there's another aspect. There are 4 stages that you go through with each customer. One is attracting the customers. And attracting customers leads to getting some time with them, holding them. So you've got them to pay attention to you. Now you try to keep them by paying attention, and there are many ways to do that. We'll get to that. And then you have to sell them something because this is business. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs who are especially excited about their company, like the young man I mentioned before, David, who grinds up raspberry seeds and strawberry seeds. David loves to talk to people about raspberry seeds and raspberry seed powder. He's not so great at closing sales, though. Yeah. So you have to sell them something, and then, unfortunately, you're not done. You have to then figure out ways to keep them as a customer. So this series of stages is important to keep in mind. Hold, the second one, pretty easy to imagine if you're talking about the shoe store. Let's take that one. Somebody walks in, and you can visualize, all of you have been this person. You come in, and it's up to somebody in the store to engage you in conversation, try and keep you there. Why do they want to keep you there? Well, because they want to sell you something. So that part's pretty simple. Well, what if it's somebody visiting your e-commerce website where they're going to buy something online? There are a couple of problems. Number one, you don't know they're there. You don't even know who it is. And you can't talk to them. How are you going to hold them? Well, you hold them through sticky marketing, it's called. You do things with your website to make it hard to leave right away. And there actually is a book that I would recommend. The title is Sticky Marketing. And it really gives you some really great insights into how to make a customer not leave the website. It's easier if it's a shoe store, right? Another thing, I want to go back for a minute, just for a moment. Oh, you can go back that way. This marketing budget, by the way, is a great tool to help the people that are either working for you or your advisors to contribute. You can show them this. You can say, oh, well, here's the marketing plan that I've developed. These are the actual numbers. Here are the deadlines that we have, the dates that things have to be done. And it's a way that they can contribute and help you. Because, as I said before, you don't know everything. Oop, this is fun. So, guess what's coming back? So now, there's something I didn't show you. See the little gray boxes over on the right side? This is a little problem that business owners have. They have lots of great ideas. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to make a lot of money. As far as marketing is concerned, you have some great ideas. Well, there needs to be a purpose for the idea. For instance, why would you have the graphics put on your truck? And we're going to move this over. Just let me slide this over. Whoop. There we go. So these items say attract, hold, sell, retain. And I just putting this on the screen to help you see that once you have this list, it wouldn't be a bad idea to stop and go back and ask yourself, why am I doing each of these things? Because it will probably turn out that you are doing way too much to attract people, and you haven't given enough thought to how you're going to hold them or retain them. There's almost always an imbalance. And by doing something like this, there are several different ways you could do it. It will force you to think for a minute, and I guarantee you that when you do this, certainly whenever I do this, this is what happens. I look at it and I say, wow, how could I have been that dumb? I've completely imbalanced my marketing, and now I'm going to have to take some things out of attract customers, and I have to do more to retain them. It's a humbling experience. You find out that your first try wasn't so absolutely fabulous. Let's go back to Starbucks in the 1970s. Well, if I'm so smart, how did we do with attract, hold, sell, retain? When I look back now, I am happy to say that I think we did pretty well. How did we attract customers? Well, we sold something they wanted. We had done surveys. We were not the only people in Seattle, Washington who wanted coffee. Whew, boy, that was nice to learn. When we rented stores, we put them in really great locations. As we talked about that a minute ago. And we used public relations. Now, public relations, sometimes called PR, public relations in the United States in the early 1970s consisted primarily of getting newspapers and magazines to write stories about you. And there were a lot of stories written about Starbucks and in magazines and newspapers. Guess why? Remember Gordon Bowker, one of my partners? He was a journalist. He was a writer. So he knew how to get that done. Today it's different. It would be magazines, newspapers, and then you would be really nice to bloggers because they talk to a lot of people, and you'd use social media and other digital means. In fact, for instance, Ali Ibrahim and his team at the Youth Symposium used to fill this auditorium. In addition, another way we attracted customers, and this is not useful at all businesses, in our stores we were grinding a lot of coffee. Remember, we were selling, in the early years, we were selling coffee beans and we'd grind them up and you'd take it home. Well, guess what happens when you grind coffee? There's a tremendous aroma that is released. And if you grind, 500 pounds of coffee in one day in a store, boy, that's a lot of aroma. And we made sure that aroma went out onto the street in front of our store. I'm not going to tell you how we did that. That's a trade secret. But I think you can guess how we did that. So if you're walking down the street past our store and not paying much attention, when you get to our door, you are going to get knocked down by this incredible aroma. And you are going to stop, and you're going to ask yourself, where did that come from? And you're going to be attracted to our business. By the way, bakeries love to do that too. Bakeries love to put the aroma of fresh baked goods out on the street so that you will get attracted. So a person would come in, maybe attracted by the aroma, and we have to hold them now, right? So I'm going to make believe that I am the salesperson. I was the salesperson sometimes, and I'm talking to you and about buying some coffee, and another person comes into the store over there. So what I will do is say hello to them. I say, good morning. And then I turn back and we continue our conversation. Well, by saying good morning to them, it makes it harder for them to just walk out again. You know, it's like we have the beginning of a relationship, and maybe I shouldn't just turn around and leave, and you know, it kind of works on your brain a little bit. Then, if I can see that our conversation about whatever you're doing is getting complicated and it's going to take time, and I'm really worried that other person's going to leave, I would probably, in those days, have turned around and poured a sample of coffee for you, and so you can have a cup of coffee with me, and I would pour another sample, and I would walk over and give it to that person. The minute that one of our employees gave that person a little cup of coffee, they can't leave. That coffee is like an anchor holding a boat. You just can't walk out after somebody gives you a cup of coffee. So we would do that. Now you have to imagine a store with 6 sales clerks and a lot of things going on, but the same rules always applied. We had to find a way to hold people. These are very basic methods. Then we had to, unfortunately, sell them something. We couldn't just have a social time. So we would, everybody that worked for us was very passionate about coffee and wanted to talk about it. This still goes on today at Starbucks in Kuwait. I was in one of the stores and I observed employees, 40 years later, still, trying to engage customers in a conversation. It's a beautiful thing. But this is business. So, I told you that entrepreneurs sometimes are more passionate and not very good at selling. We did sales training so that those wonderful people that were working for us selling coffee actually would try to close sales. And the basic, I'm going to just give you the basic example. This is something that you would do to children. They would, if you have a child and it's time for them to go to bed, you might say, you can go to bed now, or you can go to bed in 5 minutes. Which do you want to do? And it doesn't matter, and they always make a choice, and it's always 5 minutes later. But that's kind of a selling technique. And what we would do is, the woman who had just come in and was sampling the coffee that I gave so that I could talk to you, when I would be talking to her, the conversation might go like this. So you tried the Tanzania coffee. Would you like to purchase a half pound of that to take home and try in your own coffee maker? Or maybe you'd like to try the Colombia coffee. Which coffee would you like to try? This is an artificial choice. They don't have to make any purchase, right? But if you say it that way, which coffee would you like to try? That's a sales technique. I'm sure someone has sold you a car doing that. Which one do you want, the red car or the white car? And it works pretty well. And that's just one of many sales techniques. So we would try to sell. And then we had to retain them. Well, with coffee, it's not so difficult to retain people. But there are a couple of things that you may have observed yourself in coffee bars here in Kuwait City. One of them is the clerk will use your name. They'll remember you. So you purchase something, for some reason your name came up, maybe from your credit card. So you come back the next day and they say, Khalik, I'm so glad you came back. The minute you hear your name coming from someone, I can guarantee you, you will return to that store forever because it is so wonderful to be remembered. And if they can't remember your name, maybe instead they'll just remember the drink you ordered. You know, they'll say, oh, it's the guy with the beard. Yeah, I remember him. And they'll say, oh, let's see, it's nice to see you again. So you got a latte the last time you were in here. Would you like to have it again? Oh my gosh, if somebody does that to you, you're never going anywhere else. And, you know, Kuwait is a very social place. You know, I've noticed that people really enjoy each other's company. And in a business setting, remembering a name or the type of purchase is a great way to get people to stick with you. Now, there are other ways. A business, you go shopping at a supermarket and they give you a coupon which says, if you come back anytime in the next 30 days, you can have a free quart of milk. Well, what are they really doing there? They want you to be loyal because there is something else that the marketers could tell you about, which is the lifetime value of a customer, which is how many dollars could a car dealership expect to make from you over your lifetime? That's a big number. So it's worth trying to create this loyalty, for instance, giving a little discount once in a while. So that's roughly attract, hold, sell, and retain. I would like to give you some ideas. I'm going to do something that might amaze you. I'm going to suggest to you some things that you can steal from Starbucks. Just go right ahead and steal them. So one of the things that you can steal is new product development. So you've got a company or you have a service. Let's say you have a service. And you're very good, you're doing pretty well in business. Well, you could develop a new kind of service, an additional service, and this is called new product development. And the best example I can think of for new product development is the Starbucks story. It's the Frappuccino. The Frappuccino is a very popular drink all over the world. It was developed to fill a marketing need. And it happened in I think about 1990. And guess what? At that time, Starbucks customers were mostly morning customers. They would come in and get coffee on their way to work. And they didn't come back. So the store was empty all afternoon. So the Frappuccino, it's a wonderful drink, I think. It's blended ice, coffee, flavors, and a milk product, and it's just delightful. And Starbucks has turned it into a virtual industry. So that product was developed to get people to come back to the store. And it worked. I'll bet you that half the people in this room have had one this year. So new product development, it could be a very strategic thing to do. A second idea that I'd like you to steal from Starbucks is the idea of adding value to the relationship that you have with your customers. And I'm going to give you one example of what I mean. I'm talking about something that would add value that isn't just about the product, something that makes dealing with your company kind of special. And in the case of Starbucks, Starbucks is famous almost all over the world for supporting good causes in their local areas. I don't know how they do it here. I certainly know how they do it where I live. What do? They will give to causes that support the environment. They will help local parks, usually near their stores, get funded or have new trees. They work with environmental groups. They work with groups that help poor children, and they work with families. They work with groups that support improving the life of the people who pick coffee. These are generally very poor people in the countries of origin where the coffee comes from. So that's nice. It's really great that Starbucks does that. And I want to suggest that by supporting these causes, Starbucks leads you to believe that by buying coffee from them, that you are supporting those causes. And you are sort of indirectly, but not really. And it's a good feeling. In English slang, they would say it's a feel-good moment. So you buy the coffee and you see the big sign on the wall that says, "We support this particular group that's building a park down the street." And you think, "Oh, that's so wonderful, I'll have a Frappuccino." And other companies do this, small companies do this. And it works extremely well. It adds value to the relationship. We're going to take a break. I have just a small amount of additional material. You've been a wonderful audience. I will see you in 30 minutes. Thank you for coming back. I'm going to speak for just a few minutes, and then we'll have question and answers. There are a couple of important things I want to finish with. One is, for people who live in the Gulf region, there's nothing that I can tell you about social media. You know it already. It's in a very advanced state here. You embrace new ideas in social media almost instantly. But sometimes there's a problem with small businesses. I don't know exactly why, but there is a problem with small businesses, frankly, all over the world, in that they don't quite get their website and their social media to function as it should. And, this is another idea you should steal from the Starbucks of today. There are a couple of things. One is, with a website, it's very easy for people, especially entrepreneurs, to imagine a very beautiful website that's very attractive and makes your company look wonderful. But there is a technical part of the website that small businesses frequently overlook, and it's a tragedy when they do. And that is search engine optimization. It is a special skill. Very frequently, the people who design the website are not very good at optimization, because to design a website, you have to have sort of a creative side, but to optimize it, you have to almost be an engineer. It's very mathematical. And that always makes me sad when I see that. So I want you to listen to a video that was made by a young friend of mine in Seattle. He is an entrepreneur like some of you want to be. I think he's 26 years old. He is a college graduate in engineering. He had a great idea for a product. He has the product. Because he's a mechanical engineer, he designed the product, and it is being made for him in a factory in China. It comes across the Pacific Ocean, and then it is sold in the United States and now in Europe too. There are two things about this video that I have to warn you about, so that you can appreciate what he's saying, because it's a little startling. First, his product helps people get rid of bugs that they have picked up while traveling. I'm talking about insects. In specific, it is bed bugs. I don't know what the name for that is in Arabic, but it's a little insect that bites you. And it's a problem the world over. So I don't want you to be shocked about that. So I'm telling you in advance that his product helps people get rid of bed bugs. The other thing I want to tell you in advance is that this man, whose name is Cameron Wheeler, for some reason on the day he made the video, wore an incredible plaid shirt that is very distracting. You'll see when it comes on, you think, oh my God, where did he get that shirt? So I want to encourage you to try and not think about the bugs and not think about the shirt, but listen to what he is saying, because it's quite interesting. So here we go with Cameron Wheeler.
Hi, I'm Cameron Wheeler, the founder of ZapBug. We've known from our first day of business who our customers were, and we designed a product line just for them. We designed a website for them too. We want to attract people to the Zapbug site. To do that, we use search engine optimization. If you go to a search engine, like Google for example, and want to learn how to get rid of bedbugs, you're definitely going to find zapbug.com. We want to hold people on the website when they get there. It has a crisp, clean look, it presents compelling information, and it's organized in a way that makes navigating easy for our visitors. We offer a lot of free information in what is known as an information-rich website. It takes the mystery out of getting rid of bedbugs. That works. Visitors to our website look at an average of 4 pages, which is a big number. And of course, we want to sell them on our products too. We've had a lot of success optimizing our site because about 3 of 200 visitors make a direct purchase. It isn't easy to convert website visitors into buyers. It takes us time and experimentation to get it right. And finally, we want to keep them as customers because we want them to refer us to other people. We do this by offering as much free, useful information as possible and positioning our company as the expert. The internet gives small businesses like Zapbug a chance to look just as professional as large companies. So if you have a small business, use the web.
This is a smart young entrepreneur. He's doing pretty well. His business is already profitable. He's raising money from investors now to expand it. And I show you this video. I asked him to make it for you. I show you this video because I want you to understand that this man started this business only 12 months ago. And it was a pretty good idea. He had the capability. He had a couple of friends that loaned him some money. And they're going to be very glad they loaned him the money someday. It's a business that's actually working. I mean, he has container loads of his products coming across the Pacific several times a year now. So we have to skip some things here. Whoop. We're going to move to the question and answer period. I'm sure there will be some good questions. But before we do that, I want to, do you remember the video of the runners that I showed you at the beginning? The first one, not with the man falling. No, we won't show that one again. But this is the one of the runners. And I want you to get a feeling for how success sounds. So this time there's going to be a soundtrack, a real soundtrack from a sports announcer that was made when this race happened. And I love listening to this soundtrack. It's quite loud, and it's very much like a sports announcer at a football game, a soccer game. But to me, this is like the thrill of being right from the start, of being successful in business. This to me is how it feels.
Well, Trammell nearly got the best start there, but just hits that first hurdle, and Sharman's going well with Parchment. Some real work to do here. Trammell leading it, Parchment trying to get back into it, but look at Will Sharman having a great race, but here comes Parchment now. The Jamaican gets there.
So the last thing he said there was, the Jamaican gets there. That's the man who's crossed the finish line first. And you know, when you're the Jamaican in business, it feels really good. And I would hope for you that you get to be the Jamaican who gets across the finish line first. Now, before we go to the question and answer, I personally want to thank you for taking the time to be here, for being a patient audience.